Great to be here. I know we're wrapping up the day, and we appreciate you. So quickly, I'll tell you about our firm, Regeneration. We're on our first fund, about to launch a second, and quite excited by what we're seeing, even given all the headwinds in the market, because we're going after a lot of the same problems as David just mentioned and Kuki before. But consumer industries are a huge part of global emissions, upwards of 70%. The food we're eating, the clothes we're wearing, all of the things in our life. And there are approaches you can take to reduce waste. Right now, it's 93% globally of everything you touch goes to a landfill, 96% here in Switzerland and in more developed countries. So there's a big opportunity to get that number back closer to zero, cut global emissions nearly in half. And that's what we're focused on, is the value chain of consumer industries, helping from material inputs, like we're going to hear from our amazing co-founder of Colorifix, Chris, to brand platforms that connect those materials to consumers, to reuse technologies, renting, repairing, refilling, reselling, reverse logistics. Everything today primarily is made to go to a landfill. So moving mountains to get things back into supply is quite the task. So we look to find incredible founders that we can power, and we also look to work alongside corporates, because corporates are the majority of global emissions. So what are the enabling hardware and software that we can help them on their value chain journeys as things like Scope 3 emissions hit in Brussels and in California? So that's a bit of the pretext from Regeneration. I'm going to pass it over to Chris.
Thank you, Michael. Good to be here with you all. So Colorifix is a UK biotechnology company founded in 2016, spun out of the University of Cambridge. And we have the first entirely biological way of dyeing textiles. And the reason I say entirely is it's a two-part problem, dyeing textiles. There's the production of the dyes, which is a highly chemically intensive process. But there's also the application of the dyes, which also uses a lot of toxic chemistry. And most people we see are solving one half of that problem. We are displacing both parts. And the way we do it is we circle back to nature, and rather than extracting a pigment directly from a living organism, which is what you would have done before the age of synthetic dyes, we extract the message contained within its DNA that encodes it to make a certain color a certain way. We insert that message into our own microorganisms, which we train and optimize to grow the pigment for us using well-understood industrial fermentation processes. And by doing so, we can meet the quality requirements of the industry and cost requirements, but also offer vast environmental savings. We use the microorganisms to do the dyeing for us, as well as growing the pigment. We are active on 3 customer sites in Europe right now. We're in our first stage of scale-up. We have H&M as a lead investor, and we'll be setting out on our Series C next year.
So, I mean, this is a pretty mind-boggling innovation. You're going into nature and finding these colors, you're feeding it to microorganisms, and you're growing these apparel dyes. And if you've ever seen chemical dyes and dye houses and the wastewater that comes off of it and the tailings, it's a bit of a heartbreaker. So it's really encouraging that H&M has leaned in so much around it. It's something that really got us interested in the company as well, because it shows the potential for scale of the business. So you were here last year.
I was.
And so catch the room up on what's happened with the business in the last year.
So in the last 12 to 15 months, we have been working with 3 customers operating at different stages of dyeing. So we're working with a yarn dyer in Italy called Albini, in tandem with one of the world's largest luxury fashion houses, the Kering Group. And we're also working on fabric dyeing and garment dyeing in Portugal with 2 other partners, Acatel and RDD. And with these customers, these partners, we are dyeing natural and synthetic fibers. So I think the key message there is that we have demonstrated the versatility of the technology and that it can operate at these different stages of dyeing across different fabrics. I think another key thing is that our dyeing meets a key standard in the industry called Ecotex. We meet Ecotex Class 1, but we've also recently got an additional certification called the Ecotex Eco Passport, which means that we can sell our products pre-certified to the customers, which decreases their certification costs and increases the efficiency for them. And we're actually the only natural dye in the highest category, which is ZDHC level 3, which is, again, quite an important standard for the industry. We were finalists in the Earthshot Award in the Build a Waste-Free World category, and unfortunately didn't win that. But
should have won. Come on.
I know. But we are enjoying the benefits of the fellowship and getting a lot of support from the Earthshot team. And then on the challenges side, the big challenge has been supply chain. We've taken a very aggressive approach to how we're building this business. We look at a lot of biomaterial innovations, and they're nice, but we don't think they're very scalable. And we have taken an aggressive approach in that we engineer the microorganisms to make the color, we make the hardware to grow the microorganisms, ferment them, and we make the food to feed them. And we've done that because we operate in a commodities chemicals business, and we want to compete on cost. But in so doing, we have made life quite complicated for ourselves because we're tackling a lot of things at once. And supply chain, making the hardware, making the media, has been challenging. It's taken a bit longer than we anticipated, and therefore we've only recently released the large-scale version of our bioreactor, which is 3,000 liters and allows us to dye commercial volumes of fabric. So given that we've only recently released that, revenue levels are still relatively modest, but are going to start kicking in significantly as we move into next year and can start delivering more product to customer.
Yeah, so I mean, when we considered the business, obviously H&M is such a game changer in terms of their relationships to mills and dye houses, and then already working with someone within the Caring Group. This is front and center for LVMH. This is front and center for all major apparel houses now, especially as upcoming Scope 3, full valuation considerations are for supply chain and getting rid of chemicals. The demand side is there. You have this unique product set that can address things that other things can't. It sounds like the supply chain is a big issue of actually creating these units. Above that, are there other problems that you need to attack that you mentioned, or things that are upcoming to unlock?
So I think the challenge now moves from making enough of everything to servicing the customer. Right now we do everything. We do the sale, we do the implementation, we do the customer support. And that's not scalable when you look at this very fragmented landscape of manufacturers across the world. So this year we're trialing a scaling model where we're engaging with one of the largest suppliers of chemicals into the textile market in Latin America. They have the customer relationships, the logistics, the infrastructure, the cultural understanding. So we partner with them as a distributor. We train them to do the implementation and customer support. And if we can prove it works there, then we will replicate this across Asia, where a lot of textile manufacturing happens. Beyond that, we'll continue to develop colors. We make true colors from nature, but we can also mix colors, which is how the industry at large operates. And then we're optimizing our yields and optimizing our fermentation processes in order to bring costs down. As I said, in order to have a really scalable business, we want to be at parity within the next 1 to 2 years.
Exactly, and that path to parity is so key, and we've seen it in Colorifix. For investors in the room, final few seconds here, what's the fundraising plan coming up, and what's your message to investors in the room?
I mean, we're closing a small insider bridge round right now, and then we'll be setting out to raise probably a £30 million Series C from Q2. We've got a great mix of investors, probably now looking a bit more towards strategics in this next phase, but really anyone who will be the right long-term partner. It's not just the dye market we're addressing here, which is a $10 billion global market, due to our business model that has licensing revenue at the T1 vendor level. It's more of a $1 trillion market that we're addressing. So it's a very big market to go after, and there's a lot more that we can do beyond textiles as well that I don't have time to go into today. So it's finding the right long-term partners for our journey.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Noah.